Well, hello, Ameet, and hello, visitors. Welcome to the PPC Gals podcast. Ameet and I have been doing paid search for 30 years combined, manage millions of dollars in spend, and we are so fancy pants that we have been invited by the grace of the internet world and people to special events from Google now. And I mean, I feel special. I know you do. We can talk all about that. But we really wanted to record this episode to talk about the information that we got about something that's rolling out pretty soon. It goes along with a lot of the improvements Google has been making in the last episode that we did. And this one, I would say this one excites me the most. I would also say that despite being super duper excited, the minute we got off the call, I tuned out and went into dance mom mode. And that's all I've been doing all weekend. So I have amnesia. So I'm actually going to pretend like I know nothing, and then it's going to come back to me, and then I'm just going to let it rip on my thoughts. And we're going to see
The
how this
good thing
goes.
is that I took very, very good notes.
You did. It has to be
I
one of
did.
us.
So, like, my eyes will be darting this way a lot because my notes are right up here. I've got all the notes, so nothing hopefully will be missed. There's hair in my mouth somehow. There we go. I've got taken care of that. So Google's introducing a new feature to search campaigns called AI Max. It's essentially a rebrand from Search Max in a sense. I don't believe Search Max. I think they confirmed it. Search Max is not a thing anymore. It'll be AI Max. So basically AI Max is a new suite of AI powered tools designed to enhance Google's search campaigns. It enables businesses to reach new, untapped customers by expanding beyond traditional keyword targeting using AI to predict user intent and adapt to new moments and contexts. So basically what they're saying is that, and I think Sarah actually cleverly put it, it's basically a fourth match type in a sense. So we'll still have broad, we'll still have phrase, we'll still have exact, but adding AI Max to a campaign is basically us just expanding that even further. So it's like broad match on steroids in a sense.
Yeah, and I think that that's what you just hit on, is accurate. And I think just to expose sort of our audience and people who aren't sort of getting invited yet, right? Because everyone will eventually in their careers if they keep on keeping on.
Mm-hmm.
But people that aren't exposed to like these Google conversations and the conversations that we do have as influencers, we read these things, we read these press releases, we get in these conversations and we say, okay, wait, what? And then we start to try to connect to how we know the system works based on our experience, what we've read, what we see in our accounts. And then we say, oh, it's like, and we compare it to something that we know. So I think what you just articulated is exactly sort of how I interpreted it, is, a fourth match type with that layer of AI. And it's interesting because I always called broad match with AI. And what I meant that is automated bidding plus broad match. I always called the AI portion with that smart bidding, that safety net that saves you from your broad match going completely out into the wild, wild west. Now, I know I will get pushback on a lot of what I say in this. And this is, I think, where you and I balance each other because, having worked for these big brands and having these huge household name accounts, like I absolutely would lean into things like broad match plus automation because I didn't have, and it's not that I wasn't conscious of it, I didn't have my CPC micromanaged at the level of which a small or medium-sized business would. That does not mean I threw all the rules out the window and didn't pay attention. It was just those goals were fundamentally different and understood in a different way than, what I would say a lot of the clients I take being an independent business owner would be.
Yeah.
So getting into that, did you want to get into the advantages and the benefits for advertisers, Ameet? Because I know that's a big part of this.
Yeah, I think the top level, I really at this point, like key benefits usually tend to be the same for most of the updates, expanded reach, performance uplift. Obviously, there's improved ad relevancy. There we go. So there's a dynamic creative adaptation that's going to be added in. So with AI Max, Google can automatically generate and customize text headlines. So headlines or text assets, so headlines and descriptions, to match new emerging user intent. This will ensure ads stay relevant to the user query and the context, helping businesses obviously align better with their needs. So an example that I know I'm going to butcher the example, but it's in the blog post, but it's basically like if you're let's say a clothing company, you have red dress as a keyword, but somebody goes in and says red sundress keyword with corset or something like that, you might still have something that is actually serving that purpose for that user, but you haven't actually put that keyword in. So they'll actually be able to put that context together, looking at the landing page, looking at the ad copy, looking at the keywords that you already have selected, and then be able to expand from there. So then you'll actually show up for that search term that you haven't already been bidding for, essentially. And that's where that expanded reach kind of comes in.
So I guess we'll go back and again sort of bring this back to what we know. Because when I read this, I was like, DSA, DSA, DSA. That's what just read in my mind. And I want to explain that, especially to the people that aren't as like intimate with Google Ads as we are. So DSA is dynamic search ads. You basically set up an ad type. You do not have keywords. You tell Google, look at this page, crawl this page, make my keywords for me, and then make up your own headline and I'll give you 2 descriptions. And this is a lot like that, only they are saying that you have the ability to even allow that URL some flexibility versus giving the URL, which you can kind of do that in DSA as well, if you do, depending on how you set up your DSA. But so again, sort of that same foundation. But I will say I love DSA because what's not written in here is that I could put in the keyword exact match, red dress with corset top. And then Google would come back and say there's not enough keyword volume. And so I really could not be using a great fantastic long tail keyword, which we all love the long tail. I have to keep it at red dress. So that DSA component is willing to lean into those terms and grab those terms for me with, again, that machine learning component. So that's where I lean into DSA. And I think that ties right into performance uplift because I always see a performance uplift with my DSA campaigns. And again, I think it has to do with Google will serve the keyword when they maybe want extra money and find more relevance versus if I put it in. But it's how it works. It's a system. I've always had good success with it. And I think they're bringing that component in. Now, do you remember, and this wasn't in the blog post, and we asked this question, they did say they weren't getting rid of DSAs.
So that is in my notes. Let me quickly find them, actually. So it is not replacing dynamic search ads in any way. That is confirmed.
So we're going to call this a TBD on what still happens because we know a lot of times Google said that, well, that's not on the roadmap or that's not in the plans. Oh, and then I would also say, like, as we talk on this channel, it's like, how do we do search max versus how does that play nicely with the DSA if that's still in play? Those are things that we will figure out based on our experience of the data and the account and timing and then share going back as experts talking about.
Yeah, everything has to happen in real time now. Well, not even unfortunately, really. I kind of like it this way. I remember when we used to be part of, back in the day, like 8 years ago, I used to be part of like the beta tests and I used to love them because I was like, I get to find out everything before everyone. And now I'm kind of like, actually, I like figuring it out in real time with everyone because then at least I can listen to what everyone else is kind of figuring out and then I'll just go back and it might trigger a thought. Where when you're all by yourself kind of in this beta where you don't know who else is in there, you can't really talk to anybody about it. You can't really figure those things out. So I really like the real timeness for us right now. I just think it makes it a little bit more exciting. Which is kind of funny because the next point on my thing is real-time asset optimization. Text assets are going to be automatically created on your or based on your landing page's ads and keywords, which I mentioned before. And that's just going to help with the effectiveness of the ads. And then obviously it's just the same old bit. AI Max has enhanced capabilities for generated call to actions, unique selling points, ensuring your ads are more relevant and engaging to the user, which is constantly the pursuit of every advertiser really out there at this point, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. And so to talk about that sort of in depth there, when I heard this and combined it with the DSA-ish, DSA adjacent component, both of these key features tell me that SEO is still incredibly important on your paid campaigns, right? So when I am talking about SEO, I'm talking about on-page SEO. Make sure that the keywords, what you want to show up for, are incorporated into your landing pages. It's so funny. I wrote a long blog article for PPC Hero probably 15 years ago about why you need to SEO your landing page, and I talked about ad relevance. And at the time, it got what was called the Hot Dog Award, which meant it was the most read blog post.
Wow.
But I still go back to that concept today, is you need to make your pages readable, because right there it says, we will pull your assets from your landing page. That is going to be a factor. That said, something that we absolutely heard on that call was that, and I heard it called out specifically, is they do intend to generate unique headlines. And the reason I think that that was a really important distinction that was made by the team at Google is because I used the automatically created assets despite everyone being super duper critical about it. I turned that box on when that came out in beta, and it was like, I'm just willing to admit that I'm turning on what everybody is going to poo-poo, because nobody wants Google to create.
You were
stuff.
adventurous.
I did.
You're ahead of your time.
Correct. And everything was harmless. But it was very, very boring in terms of what it made. It pulled it super directly from my landing page, and nothing new was created, but it was harmless, very basic headlines. The only thing was it broke the rules of the headlines. So you know how we have the 25 character limit? I would see longer headlines sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that being, even remember with DKI's dynamic
Yep,
keyword
I
insertion,
do.
you could also do that. That was like the little loophole everyone kind of figured out. So we're like, oh, let's just do this for a little bit longer. So yeah, there's like little loopholes like that that you can kind of like weasel your way in. I don't know if the DKI thing still works to this day, but I just remember like exploiting that pretty hard back in the day.
Percent. But do you feel like if Google is actually going to start taking liberties, I mean, obviously there are going to be some brand managers and some legal teams that are probably going to be like pounding the pavement, pissed this type
I
of stuff.
mean, it is what it is. The one thing that we should notice with like the tech asset creation, there is no approval
Yeah.
process. That was something that we talked pretty at length about, especially for brands that need to really be aware of like brand safety and stuff like that and what they're putting out. You're still going to have to watch what the AI is doing, but it is going to launch it without like an approval process. I don't know if that's on their roadmap. I don't quite remember that part, but it was something that we did ask for. So you never know, we might end up getting it if it's not part of the roadmap. So that's really, really cool and exciting.
Totally
The
agree.
next little bit is on enhanced reporting and controls.
Mhm.
So AI Max introduces new features for better control and transparency, including locations of interest to reach customers based on geographical intent at the ad group level. There are also brand controls that allow advertisers to specify which brands they want to show are what ads they want their ads to be associated with and what they want to avoid. And this one I found really interesting, and I
Same.
feel like it was a mixed bag
Same.
of feelings across the board from everyone. So essentially the idea is that you would have like say your brand, let's say it's Hopskip Media. We put in Hopskip Media and just say this is our brand, and that's just literally the keyword, and then after a point we'll just put in whatever our services are. So we can say Google Ads or Meta. Let's say we do SEO now and email marketing or whatever. We can just literally put those as keywords. And like AI Max will know that we have a branded campaign and this to match them together. So we don't have to go Hopskip Media SEO anymore. It's Hopskip Media solo SEO, email, I don't know, red dresses, blue dresses, whatever the heck you want to go with, which was interesting. I don't know if I fully trust it. I'm not going to lie. That one's a little scary to me. But yeah, and then the location of interest is virtually the same thing. You put in like, let's say Los Angeles restaurant, and then it'll just combine it. But it has to be someone who's searching for LA restaurants. It's not going to be someone physically in there going restaurants near me, which I think was why there was a little bit of a mixed bag of reactions from everybody. Because, it'd be kind of nice if it was just all encompassing. We don't have to worry about the near me side of things. We could just go restaurant LA and call it a day. Yeah, do you have thoughts on it? I don't
Yeah.
know if I ever actually asked you how you
Yeah,
felt about it.
yeah, and I know we sort of all got into like a little bit of a chat afterwards, and like I said, I had that call and then put my brain on different mindset. But I will say I felt like this could potentially be good for small businesses. I've worked with a lot of, like, I came from the auto industry. That would be a great example, right? And they're very, very location centric. So we have a dealership in this area, and you're doing like Toyota dealership near me, Toyota dealership near Chicago, right? Like, so I think those associations, this could be interesting. But then when I think about when they had multiple locations, I'm like, this may enable us to centralize a campaign a little bit more and then add locations at the ad group level versus separating them out to different campaigns, but then budget still lives. So, I mean, I really kind of started thinking this through and thought, would I combine or would I separate? It's going to depend on the business. I mean, but the fun part is, guess what? Job security for us, right? Like, you've just automated a big portion and people are going to complain that they don't have control. And then people like you and I who like to talk about, I would say Google Ads theory, right? And we have our brains and we bring our brain to the equation. We're just going to thrive because people are going to call us.
Exactly. I think in this case, I get to repeat myself one more time again and again on my AI. It's just like human oversight.
Yeah. Really?
This is like one of the better opportunities for us to really like actually practice that a little bit more is by implementing it and actually just testing it out and actually having that oversight. Because I feel like with PMAX, right now we don't have that much control. Obviously, we do have more control coming towards us in the next couple of months or weeks. But like this is really kind of interesting where we're like, okay, here's this thing that's getting tacked on to search campaigns, which we already have some control over. Now we're going to release it. Let's see what happens with AI. So I'm kind of excited about that part of it because I get to just continue to stand on my soapbox screaming the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So yeah, I'm excited for that. And then there's also like URL parameters and search term reporting that's also coming into the AI Max. So what that means is that, you know how we're getting search terms on PMAX and that we can actually filter it in the search terms report, whether it's like Performance Max or if it's shopping or if it's search, AI Max will also show us those search terms too. So we don't have to sit there and go, well, is this broad match or is this AI Max? We'll actually have that clear distinction between the two. And I think that's really, really cool and exciting as well, especially for the human oversight side of things, is that we'll actually be able to see, are they actually getting the context or are they kind of off the mark? And then we can make those decisions of whether or not we want to keep AI Max. So I really like that they're giving us that separation because what I thought was going to happen is that they wouldn't give us that. And then we'd have to sit there and look at all the broad match and try to figure out what keyword of ours triggered what. And now we'll be able to kind of see that a little bit better. So that's going to be kind of really cool for me.
So how did we not talk about the fact that like with that in that same line, we'll also see the ad creative, the headline, the description. Yeah.
I might be blanking on that one
URL.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see the search term associated with the ad if it was triggered.
Oh,
and the text assets.
Yeah, no.
Huge.
I can't believe I forgot
Beside
that.
the URL. So you got the good.
Yeah, but I totally forgot that. Yeah, that's so freaking cool. Yeah.
And like,
that's
so I guess
cool.
like, so, okay, this goes back to dynamic ads, right? We said at the very beginning, right? If you have to rewatch that part. And this is what Jill said too, right? Dynamic ads plus the RSA component, right? Because dynamic ads were serving the old text ads, expanded text ads from, 5 years ago. That was a way to get that different ad type versus RSA ads, which are the standard. And so this really takes the dynamic component and puts an RSA ad, but then adds that layer of telling us what portion, because the RSA ad in itself is like the Tetris of ads. You could get any infinite number of combinations. And so now we get to see search term ad combo, which is really, really cool because what we've been telling clients, and it's tough because they don't always love it, is right ad, right time, right person, right ad, right time. It's a special sauce of combination. And, 80% went to this combo and, 2% went here. So I don't know. I think.
And then the logic every time they're just like, why? And it's just like, because Google decided that.
But the statisticians in our industry are going to take this data, pivot it, and turn it into really concrete learnings. I mean, we're going to start to get, some good Google Ads tea here.
I am really, really excited for all of the scripting guys to figure out how to take the information and visualize it. And I'm so excited.
I feel like when you said scripting guys, I'm like, we almost can call them scripting bros. Like we now need another female in the scripting bro space.
I was going to be like, I'll offer myself up, but I'm like, no, I'm not good with JavaScript. I can't.
Same. Okay, so I guess the last part, let's kind of get into like the call, right? Because that's what's like not on the blog post, and I know there's a great list. The I'll kind of start with a couple things. I mean, feel free to jump in. So performance improvement, it can deliver 14.27 more conversions at a similar CPA. That was a stat that we were given as well.
That came from L'Oreal. It's 14 to 27% increase. So L'Oreal saw 2 times higher conversion rates and 31% lower cost per conversion. iConnect, which is an Australian utility service, saw a 16% increase in leads with a 13% lower cost per acquisition. They also saw a 30% increase in conversions from net new search queries, which also is really cool. My bit on this one is the same thing that I said on the call, is that all I remember from past GMLs and obviously this upcoming one or what I'm predicting to see is that they always present these new wonderful features, but it's always a large brand. It's always like a L'Oreal. It's always a Coca-Cola. It's always a Nike. And if we're looking at like agency owners such as myself, we're not working with the Nikes. We're working with like a plumber in New York or a high-end fashion brand in Edmonton or a sunglass company in California, right? Like they're not spending millions of dollars a month. They're spending thousands. So for me, I sit there and I look at it and I'm like, yes, this is wonderful that we're seeing 14 to 27% increase. I would love to see that for our clients. Matt, I would take 5%. Like, I'll take any percent at this point, right? But my thing is, what's the budget allocation? And like, that's the thing that I've never really been able to get clarity on. It's just, well, it ranges from brand to brand. Of course it does. But is the range within something that one of our clients could afford? Because like the amount of data that L'Oreal and I'm assuming My Connect is running through their ads account is significantly larger. So the AI is able to figure out those patterns. It's able to figure out those things a lot quicker than what our brands would be able to do. So when it comes to like, if somebody were to come out to me like, oh yeah, should we implement this right away? Like, I don't have a solid answer. Like I'm truthfully having a hard time figuring out how to advocate for it without knowing how it'll actually affect the SMBs.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a very accurate. I mean, and that's our job, right? Is to protect those clients and their budget. And it came up on the call too. They said, if we do this, is it going to eat all of our budget? I mean, I think these are things. I mean, this is why, folks, you don't just jump into Google Ads, do it on your own, and think that it's gonna fly. You really, 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 if you're not ready for an agency, you call someone like me. If you're ready for an agency, you call me. Like it is a dangerous platform that can suck your money away from you. And we both of us pull in that experience to be able to answer
Yeah.
that. But you're
And the
exactly
other
right. Like, will it suck all the budget? This was a stat from a big brand, and hopefully we'll hear more about that. If we don't, our
Yeah.
own community of advertisers, we start making our studies. I
Yeah,
do.
exactly. My only other thing is something that Nava had brought up. I feel like Nava was the one who brought it up, where this is obviously something that's very much geared towards e-com.
Uh,
So like if you're an e-com brand, I would probably say, yeah, go for it. But if you're a or I can't talk today. Lead generation business. Again, I'm just not sure if it's actually going to do what we want it to do because that first party data is so crucial for lead generation. So I think that's where my hesitation comes is most of our work is a lot of lead generation. So then I sit there and I'm like, could I actually go back to our clients and be like, yeah, we should try this 100%. And it's like, it's a big question mark for me right now.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. And then also in here, advertisers with low AI adoption currently. I mean, part of me is like, okay, that's obvious. Like, if you start using AI when you've never used AI, it does sort of help. I sometimes think about Performance Max. I've seen a lot of clients who are in standard shopping, they move to Performance Max. It really, really works until it doesn't. And then they go back to shopping, and then you play this game of back and forth, back and forth. All that said, the clients that play the back and forth game, I usually find can't actually afford to be running the campaigns they're running, but that could be a whole nother conversation.
That's a different topic for
Different
a different
topic,
day.
another day. But I kind of agree with that, but that's another wait and see. And then adds AI capabilities to existing search campaigns. Yes, it really does add in that component. Also in here, the features, one-click activation. Of course, Google is making it easier to turn things like this on.
Yeah. So the one distinction that we should make is that you know how when we're creating or doing the setups for our campaigns and there's a box that's already pre-checked to do broad match or whatever, that box will be removed from my understanding, or at least that's what was said on the call. And it will be replaced with AI Max. I don't know if it's automatically going to be ticked off right away or if we're going to have the option. I mean, if we're looking at past Google stuff, it's probably already going to be ticked off, and that's okay, right? But it's just something to just think about, realize it's happening before you're doing your setup, just don't glide through it. Kind of take your time when you're doing your setup just to make sure that you are selecting it or deselecting it based off of whatever your preference is.
No, I would 100% agree with that. And then improve search term matching. We talked about that. Reach means more, right? So it's reaching further and further up and around. And then automatic text and creative, and then expanding relevant landing pages, which I would say another one to, I mean, we could have a whole conversation about that. Be careful about that. I have had websites with multiple language Tetris together in Canada, actually. I mean, I'm sure you'll be familiar with this.
Oh, Canada.
Both French and English, so it's a mixed language because of the way their domain's set up.
Or bilingual.
And then the advertiser controls. I thought this part was
Oh, so
really interesting.
before we move off, the one thing that we haven't touched on is that they're actually doing creative customization as well. Not only text. We were talking mainly about text assets. They're actually doing creative assets
so I
as
did not
well.
catch that.
Yeah.
So, image.
That's the one. I don't think it was, I don't remember the blog post off the top of my head right now, and I don't really remember it being like a significant piece in it, but I remember our conversations of talking about it. And that's where like that brand control type of stuff kind of came in, is I believe that they'll be taking the branding guidelines from the website and then creating those assets based off of whatever they're able to pull from the website.
Huh.
Don't like fully quote me on that one. That's from what I remember from that call. That's what was said.
That's
Yeah, so then that's where I think where everybody was like, how do we feel about
Well, I
this?
mean-
But the great thing about this side of things is that we can remove it. Like it's not permanent. So it's just a matter of just keeping your eyes on it. Really, at this point, again, the human oversight part of this is going to be incredibly important because, again, we know that AI is going to make mistakes. It's still, I mean, it's constantly going to be learning. I'm not even going to say that the learning of it is ever going to end really at this point, but who knows? But yeah, we do have the option to go in and remove the asset if we don't want it in the mix.
Well, that one's going to be interesting for sure because we could do again. We could do a whole episode on automatic image creation theory, right?
That one's a little terrifying to me.
A little
Yeah.
terrifying, but I have tried it, so and had it work. But like that could be a whole nother episode.
Fair.
Okay, so advertiser controls. Speaking of the control freaks that we are, so these came from call questions. So maintain existing keyword prioritization. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so AI Max will not be overruling broad phrase or exact match. Those match types will take priority over AI Max. So you don't have to sit there and worry about how, like with PMax, there's been like scooping of search traffic and branded traffic and all that stuff. We don't have to worry about that in this case. It's already baked in that the keywords that we have selected prior to AI Max will take precedence.
And then brand and location controls at the campaign and ad group level.
So that was the keywords that we were talking about, where you can have only your brand name and then only your location, and then it'll be able to piece those things together. So that's basically those controls.
And then the URL to manage landing page, similar.
That's the expansion side of it. So very similar to what PMax is doing with the URL expansion. Jeez Louise, I can't say the words.
Nope, you're absolutely right. And then you can remove the generated assets, which we just talked about. And then, yeah, I mean, transparency, which I feel like maybe should be a drinking game at GML.
Take shots every time they say transparency. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'll be on the floor in 5 minutes.
Right. I feel like I'm on Google's side on this one. Like they're saying transparency and they're giving us some more. They are.
Yeah, I'm not mad about the transparency side of things. I think for me, it's just more or less of just not the unknown is where my hesitance kind of comes in. And then obviously just figuring out if this is something that works for bigger brands or if it's going to work for SMBs. But I will not fault them on the transparency side of things. They're actually giving us more than I thought we were going to get.
Agreed.
To be entirely honest.
Ability to filter and compare AI Max performance.
That's going to be the cool part. I really like that we're going to have that separation in the search terms reports just to be able to sit there and be like, okay, what are we triggering? And then maybe that might give us ideas on like what a new landing page needs to look like. Maybe there's another ad group that needs to come into the mix because we haven't considered these keywords or whatever else, right? So there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this as well. It's just a lot of uncertainty at this current moment.
Yeah, I would agree. And then preserves existing campaign reporting thing.
Yeah, so you're not going to lose your historical data in any way.
And then the important distinctions, we talked about some of these, not replacing dynamic search ads. We'll see because, I mean, we'll see. But that's what they said.
I feel like eventually at some point it'll morph. I have a strong hunch. I mean, we've seen that happen before, but right now we do have the two distinctly, well, distinctly different. We'll see how it goes.
And then I like this, like it's not mandatory, it's an opt-in feature designed to be collaborative, not fully automated. Thank you. And then respect search campaign structures, which we talked about with the match types. And then do you want to get into the recommended next steps? Because I know that that's the biggest thing people want to know.
Yes.
What do I do now?
Yeah, I'm gonna call myself Ameet the Timid, because I like baby steps with everything, especially with these kind of changes. Because I think it's just that realization that we're playing with real money, with real clients and stuff like that. So for me, it's just like I want to take it a step at a time. So obviously, test it in a controlled campaign. Don't do it if you're not comfortable. Don't do it if you're gonna walk away from the campaign for like a week or two or something. Which I mean, you shouldn't be doing, period. But like, if you're sitting there going, I'm gonna turn this on and walk away. I highly doubt you, or highly suggest you not walk away. Turn it on, but please just stay there. Obviously, monitor your performance closely. We're gonna see lifts. We're gonna see maybe a spike in CPCs. We might see anything really at this point, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on all of that, because we've seen it before where like CPCs rise when we add something like a new smart bidding into it, and people go, well, what the heck just happened? I'm like, well, you weren't monitoring and you walked away for like a week because you were like, let it collect its data. And of course, yes, we should. I'm not saying touch it, but like look at it at the very least. Figure out if something's a little off, and then also just use those granular controls just to make sure that you're actually guiding the AI in the direction that you want it to go. Again, small incremental steps. I believe that in ads. I believe that in life in general. Small, consistent steps, and you'll get to where you want to go. We don't need to do big leaps and bounds and swings. We don't need to take half of our budget and put it into AI Max. We can do 10% and then can grow from there. So yeah, just keep on doing that. And then also keep on giving Google your feedback. They're clearly listening, right? And that was kind of the sentiment from last week's video too, where we kind of sat there and was like, sometimes it feels like they're not listening, that we're just like screaming into a void. But like the last couple of weeks, they've been showing us that that's actually not true. It's just that we have to realize that they're a bigger company, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to kind of sift through and get to where we want them to get to, right? So keep on giving them your feedback. Keep on asking questions. Clearly it's working. So good work to everybody in the community for constantly voicing our concerns, because they're listening. So that's kind of really amazing.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with everything you said. I think this one's exciting. I don't want to say it's more exciting than the other.
I'm more excited for PMAX. I'm not gonna lie.
You're excited for PMAX. I'm excited for search. God, we're gonna have some good conversations.
I'm just really excited for those features. Like, I just want to finally open that box up and just like look what's inside. Like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I'm loving it. All right, well, with that, let's wrap up to this special edition episode. As always, comment, like, and of course, subscribe, because I feel like we're in the know now. And if you're subscribed and talking to us, guess what? You're in the know too.
Yeah, we feel so cool.
I love it. All right, well.
Oh my gosh.
Bye.
Bye, friends.